Singade. My name is Muli Singade. I would like to welcome you all to this Tech Talk. Today we have the BSG company that is visiting us. As you know that the aim of this Tech Talk is to bridge the gap between the industry or the industrial technology companies with our university. So today we have BSG who's visiting us to tell us more about their company and what do they do. BSG is a business system group. So they work with various companies to provide digital solutions for data and artificial intelligence. They also help these companies to improve their operation. They also offer some or wide range of great opportunities like internships and graduate programs. So if you might be interested to join their company, this is your opportunity to listen and take some questions, take some notes while they present and what their company is offering. So today we have on our speakers Mr. Darryl Govender, who is an associate partner with BSG. We also have Ms. Palesa Sibanyoni. She is a people's effectiveness consultant. And then we have Kyle Mary, who is a software developer. They are going to be telling us more. The first person who's going to give us a presentation is Mr. Darryl Govender on the topic, the cloud. It is more than just a way of selfies. And over to you, Mr. Darryl. Thank you so much. It looks like you are muted. Palesa, can you please unmute?
Sure.
Can you guys hear us now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. I was just saying thanks very much for allowing us some time to speak to you, and thanks students for attending. Our talk today it's on a topical subject of the cloud. I'm sure you guys have some experience, and we'll talk through what that means, and we'll talk about exactly where our industry is using it and what that means for your career as well. So yeah, our title is the cloud. It's more than just where your selfies live. Just to poke some fun at, typically we'd see the cloud as a place that we would store our pictures, our documents, our whatever else in iCloud and Google Drive, etc., that kind of thing. But when you unpack and get into the nuts and bolts of it, there's a hell of a lot more to it, and we wanted to talk to you about it in our session today. So just in terms of agenda, we'll go through just a quick intro again. I'll ask the team to introduce themselves and share a bit of their experience and insight as well. And then we'll jump into the actual talk. And we've also got Kyle, who's going to talk about his experience joining BSG this year as a graduate. So just from an introduction perspective, my name is Darryl Govender. I'm an associate partner for engineering within BSG. So I've been working in software engineering for the last 20 or so years. I think you can tell from the grades. And I run kind of our software engineering practice within BSG. So that's software, cloud, DevOps, security, etc., those types of capabilities. Kyle?
Yeah, hi guys. So I'm one of the graduates that BSG hired. I studied at UKZN, did computer science, and now I'm working as software developer.
Hi guys, I was responsible for the hiring of Kyle. I'm Palesa. I work in the People Effectiveness Department. I'm a People Effectiveness consultant, mainly dealing with graduate recruitment and our graduate development program as well.
So just a bit more about BSG, and it was covered a little bit in our intro, but BSG has been around for the last 27 years, so founded in 1997. It's very much kind of started around business and strategy consulting and grew organically into a fully fledged kind of solutions company. So we work very much in financial services and insurance. So a lot of your traditional local big names we service very directly. We also do some work in telco and media and technologies, and a little bit in integrated ecosystems, i.e. mining. I think a key part of what we do is very much people focused. So we'll talk about ultimately everything we drive is trying to make sure that we are realizing the potential of our team and our people, and then driving results for our clients, and then obviously driving the results for our brand. So our people value proposition is quite critical to that, and then this continual growth or continuous learning and growth mindset that we have in our organization Obviously, in our field and in any field, really, I think learning is quite critical. So creating the space to actually learn on the job, alongside the job, is obviously quite key. And you guys coming into your careers now and getting more hands-on experience, you'll find that transitioning from university into the working world slightly different. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. And then in terms of investment into, let's say, the pipeline of talent of South Africa, this is obviously something that's quite key to our organization, and I think quite critical to a lot of organizations within South Africa, is how do we actually contribute back into community? How do we support the right types of programs, including partnering with universities? As an example, we play roles on the advisory boards for most of the universities listed here. And actively how we support bridging that gap in terms of going from training, let's say, the vocabulary that's been set in the university, and then transitioning back into the workplace. Okay, let's jump directly into our talk. So we wanted to start with some high-level positioning of some brands you're probably very familiar with, and I'm sure that you'd use them probably on a daily basis as well. And of course, there's no surprise here. They all very much are cloud-based, cloud-focused. Some of them, like Amazon, have gone as far to create their own kind of cloud services providers as well. I'm sure you're familiar with Amazon Web Services. But these brands that we kind of know and love have gotten used to a certain level of service, specifically that it's always on, it's always available, very little downtime, etc. It's all powered by the cloud. And if you bring it in a little bit closer, a lot of the brands we interact with locally within South Africa, whether it's your Takealots, your banks, 6060, etc., those types of things, are leveraging cloud technology as well. So it's everything across the usual providers of AWS to Microsoft Azure to Google Cloud. They're using these technologies quite directly. So you can imagine when you enter the workplace, having a leg up in understanding what the cloud brings and how to use it, how that ties back to your engineering capability and know-how is quite critical as well. Maybe to talk a bit more about the cloud, and we'll focus on the public cloud specifically. I think there's just your general perception around what it is, and maybe the purest view is it's everything to everyone, trying to democratize the use of computer services. So if you think about the value prop of something, and maybe Eskom is a bad example, but democratizing electricity to people without needing to go and create a generator or something in your backyard. Cloud is trying to do the exact same thing from an IT service perspective. So it started, of course, with just giving you access to, in this example, someone else's computer that's just hosted and managed somewhere else. But of course, those services have extended itself all the way across the stack. So you've got things like database as a service. Nowadays, you've got AI as a service, etc. That's quite critical in terms of the types of work that we do. So from a growth perspective, it's gotten quite substantial in terms of its use and in terms of its value back to not just engineers and from a career perspective, but obviously to the clients, like we talked about in the last couple of slides. So we'll focus around just what that means and how we would suggest that you grow out your career based on the cloud, and specifically of these three in mind. So from a use case perspective, I think you guys will be very familiar with building solutions with programming languages and maybe working across the stack from a back-end, front-end database perspective as well. So on the far left, we talk about how cloud is actually helping to inform the full software development lifecycle. So here we're just talking about the DevOps lifecycle. So from a tooling perspective, the enablement of everything from plan to monitor is ultimately being managed through things like directly through cloud providers, through native services, but also through third-party providers as well. So you can see probably a lot of those logos that you can see on the image are things that you either are familiar with, have heard of, or even are using quite directly that tie into the use of cloud, how it ties back to the SDLC, etc. Those types of things. I think moving forward, the last 5 years, especially, the use of big data has been growing. So maybe that's even in the last kind of 20 years, as long as cloud's been growing in utilization. But artificial intelligence, like you guys will be familiar with things like GitHub Copilot, Gemini, Claude, etc. like those use cases, and the fact that they're also powered a lot by the cloud and having access to things like this big regional, global ecosystem of compute, storage, networking, etc., to enable these types of services. So again, quite critical in terms of whether you're going to focus on just a software path, so building greenfield or even brownfield modernization of applications, or if you're going into maybe a big data use case, which is everything from data engineering to understanding analytics, and then on the far right is into the artificial intelligence, machine learning type use cases. So career-wise, whether you're working for, let's say, those big corporates in the previous kind of slide, or working directly for a technology company, the roles are quite diverse and broad in terms of how you can grow a career, and ultimately it being either directly linked to the use of cloud on the day-to-day basis, or maybe indirectly linked in the sense that you're building solutions that are ultimately hosted in the cloud as well. I think from a skills perspective, and it's important to recognize the training kind of philosophy at the university, which is really enabling you to critically think, to problem solve, to think laterally around problems, so that you can apply that type of thinking, that type of mindset into the workplace. And the immediate and obvious gap that we've seen, and we'll speak a little bit more about it in a little bit later on, is once you've gotten that degree, whether it's undergrad or postgraduate degree, and then you hit the workplace for day one, it's quite different. And it's because the types of work that you'll be doing will be a little bit more hands-on in a broader team setting, oftentimes directly delivering for a client, who have very specific kind of requirements. And you're taking a lot of your skills, which are like the hard technical skills and the softer skills, to actually deliver on the job. So here we're trying to talk about the exposure you're getting right now is maybe along the T-shape. You're getting a lot of breadth. You're going into a certain level of depth, but it's not truly deep in terms of knowledge and specialization, or at least as applies to on-the-job kind of delivery. What we're seeing from a junior perspective is working on that T-shape. So especially working to improve your breadth, so getting more exposure, because I think it's very much a case of don't know what you don't know until you actually get the exposure that says software engineering looks like this in reality in the job, versus being a DevOps engineer or maybe being a specialized AI engineer, as an example. So recommendation would be continue to think about breadth and exposure. It's critical. But then also think about where would you like to specialize and be open to further specializations. So on the left, we talk about as you become more senior, you probably will have a couple of specializations in terms of, let's say, programming language. Maybe it's Java over .NET, or maybe it's a cloud provider, AWS versus an Azure, etc., that type of thing, so that you can actually build out your profile and capability aligned to what a business would typically need. So in our experience, juniors having a great T-shape with breadth and a bit of depth in a specialization so they can focus. But over time, as you become more senior, looking to become more V or M shaped in terms of having more than one specialization, and then obviously managing how you can grow yourself with those specializations in that. And then I think we've spoken quite on a relatively high level just around cloud and what it means from a career perspective. Cloud is not a silver bullet. So as long as it's been around, I mean, AWS I think started officially in 2006, thereabouts. It's been around for some 20 years. But a lot of our local names, so you can think about our big banks as a good example, they're still on this long-term journey of adopting the cloud, because it does create a mental shift in the organization. It's that combination of people, process, and technology. And that change journey takes a long time. So we're still very much on that journey. So cloud is very much still relevant. And like we were talking about earlier, the use of AI is creating or being hosted in the cloud and leveraging things from a native perspective in the cloud to realize those use cases are still creating a lot of value and traction for organizations, especially South African organizations who are, we would typically see as being behind the curve from a global perspective. From a career, coming back to your careers and how that ties back to cloud, it's still quite critical. In fact, a lot of these local local organizations, even the biggest ones, are on these journeys that are going to last at least another 10 to 20 years, honestly, as they start to move more of their workloads and applications into the cloud. And then obviously the ongoing modernization and maintenance of those solutions. That said, besides the adoption challenge and the time and effort that it takes to actually migrate and modernize into the cloud, there are other things that are, continued risks. As an example, security, access to data, those types of things that again create some good opportunities from a career perspective, so that you can focus and specialize and grow into areas that are going to be well protected. Just to speak about the security angle from a job security, pun intended, perspective, it's always an area that organizations invest in. No one's ever divesting from security or reducing their security budget. So having a good understanding of what security looks like in the cloud and broader from an application perspective is also a really good opportunity to grow and eventually specialize over time. I wanted to actually open it up to some questions. Sorry, I went through that a little bit quicker than expected. But just what you guys are experiencing in terms of I'd love to understand your utilization of the cloud, your exposure to it. I mean, then just in general around what it can mean for your career. Would love to answer based on my experience.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Govender. I appreciate your beautiful presentation. Uh, right. I would like to take a round of questions for Mr. Governor before we move to the next speaker. And then if there are any more questions, you guys can populate it on the chat. We are going to attend later on. But if there is only one question, a quick one that I can take before I can move on to the next speaker. All right. There is one question that is coming in.
Okay.
Where can I find a recording for a session? Okay. I think we are going to attend this one later on. What are the requirements for getting accepted into the graduate program? And if I were accepted, what would I be expecting to know? Are there any personal projects, something that a personal project, something that is encouraged in graduates? That's the question.
Okay. Palesa, will we cover that a bit later in our talk?
Okay.
Do you want to
Thank you so
answer
much.
that?
Yes, before we move on, Mr. Governor, just a quick one from myself. You mentioned on your presentation that you are investing on South Africa's future. I wanted to ask
Yeah.
from a quick one, myself, for example, I'm just a lecturer, but from a student perspective, maybe this is a student who is doing a third year, and then they are about to finish their degree. And then what can they do probably to build their resume to be an attractive candidate for your company from the perspective of the company, from your experience as well with BSG? What are the attractive candidates that you are looking for both internships and graduate programs?
Yes. So I think what we like to see is in university, ultimately at the end of the day, your key differentiator is your mark. Like it's often seen as just your marks, like how well do you perform in terms of your transcript. But what we like to look for as well is, are you going above and beyond? And I know that can be a tricky ask because sometimes just the full curriculum is enough in terms of taking your time and effort and energy. But we like to see where you're looking to volunteer outside of your, let's say, your student life. So if there's places where you're either volunteering to get more exposure, whether it's through an internship or VAC work, or if it's joining specific programs outside of the university itself, those things are always encouraged. If there's additional training outside of traditional curriculum, as an example, all of these cloud providers are investing quite heavily in Africa in terms of growing capabilities. They usually measure that through certifications, etc., through everything like foundational vocab kind of stuff, like AWS has their practitioner certification, Microsoft has a fundamental certification, but it's just to kind of show that you understand some of the terminology, and never mind you've actually been exposed to a console. But those types of things help in terms of getting exposure and look really good on a CV as well, because it shows, again, interest and passion to pursue. And then I think anything that is like a lot of the developer societies set up these hackathons that are sometimes hosted with industry or with support from partners and industry, etc. Like attending and driving those types of use cases, maybe even winning or placing within that hackathon in terms of what you built and solutions, like those hands-on skills, obviously what we're looking for best, because it helps us to bridge in place more effectively when you start.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I like it when you're mentioning about the hackathons. Just a follow-up quick one. Do you, by any chance, have any hackathons that you do within your company?
So we're looking at setting up some now. We'd be very open to looking at working with UKZN to support around any hackathons that you guys want to run.
Okay.
I think hackathons are best in person, to be honest, but we're open to formats to try and drive this effectively as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Govender. To the chat guys who are asking questions, Mr. Govender indicated that one of the questions that you guys are asking are going to be covered in the next presentation. We still have two more speakers. So one of your questions might be answered throughout the presentation, but we are going to attend all of them after these two presentations. Over to you, Ms. Palesa. And the topic is bursaries and job opportunities at BSG. Thank you.
Yeah, we will jump into, so I wanted to just cover quickly from a career opportunity perspective with Kyle, so you can relay some of his feedback. Kyle started with us this year in Jan. So it's been 8 months. It's been interesting. He's on a client project now as well, and we thought we'd talk through some of the kind of usual questions in terms of what he's experienced.
No problem. Thank you so much. Over to you, sir.
Cool. Hi guys. Yeah. So I'm one of the 6 grads that BSG has hired this year. So I'm on a client project, and I'll discuss like my whole experience at BSG. So obviously coming from university to the workspace wasn't the easiest transition, especially like moving to a whole new city from Durban to Joburg. But the people in my team, or people that I work closely with, they've been like making it a whole lot easier, asking me if I need anything, and so on. I think the main adjustment from university to the workspace is being able to deal with time management or like work-life balance. Because in uni you can like just, if you have an 11 o'clock lecture, you can just skip it or not attend modules or whatever like that. But coming to the workspace shows how important time management is, because you need to wake up early, go to work, have time for yourself, family, and things like that. So it sort of teaches you how to put all of that into a schedule. And something I wish I knew in uni was how important group projects are. I know most students hate group projects because there's always someone who doesn't want to do anything. But that's completely different in the workspace. At PhDs, people are always willing to do their part. So you sort of have to learn how to communicate your ideas and opinions and things like that. And also being able to put your best foot forward and have things done in a reasonable time frame. My first impressions of BSG is that it's a company that wants to sort of produce excellent products or services all the time. For example, because I'm a developer, my code goes through numerous reviews so that make sure that it's up to standard and things like that before it goes on to the stage. Another thing is there's a culture of like excellence. For example, the engineering division, there's people that will make sure that you are doing well mentally and physically and things like that. And you have people like career facilitators who sort of make sure you're progressing well and you have all your growth, that you're meeting your goals and things like that. Yeah, that's pretty much my sort of quick intro about BSG. If you guys have any questions.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I don't know if we can have a quick one, or maybe let's take all of them at the end of Palisa's presentation. Over to you, Palisa.
Are you going to cover this one? Or do you want me to cover this one?
Please cover it.
Okay, so I'll quickly just touch base on our bootcamp. So earlier we were talking about the role of university is actually to get that vocabulary, get a lot of that training, get the breadth, help with thinking and mindset, etc. When you enter the workplace, things are a little bit different. So understanding like your role, your clarity, your responsibilities, how we work together, to Carl's point, is quite critical. So what you'll typically find and what we have at BSG is a bootcamp process. So that's 3 months of very focused I don't want to say it's more training, but there's a fair amount of training. It's very specialized around the types of tools that you would use. So agile, as an example, from a way of working perspective, how that translates back to a client environment and delivering something very specific. Working within like a team construct, again, understanding your role within the team, that team and agreement, etc., that kind of thing. And then obviously the very specific technologies. So we'll work on like our 80-20 use case of the types of technologies that we would expect to clients, so that you can get a feel for what it looks like from everything through the plan to monitor phase of the SDLC. So that's covered typically within those first 3 months, working on a very specific kind of project and treating it actually as a client kind of engagement. And then this helps us to also understand where you've got specific gaps, etc., where we can help to improve and mentor. The next 3 months are typically going to be some sort of shadowing directly with the client. So that's the project, so to speak, but not necessarily responsible for any kind of delivery back to the client. You'll be engaged, you'll be working with the client directly, but most of it will be kind of through the team lens that exists. So as an example, Carl's been through a couple of stages of how this works out, and eventually, like we talked about, he's been deployed into a client environment to actually deliver within the team. So you can imagine that that's a bit of an investment from the BSG side to make sure that the success, because again, there is a bit of a gap that needs to be bridged when you come across from university into the working world. It would be pretty hard, I think, to jump straight in and create value from week one as a graduate. So our bootcamp is our process to help us to improve that and make sure that you've got the right skills to actually be successful. And then, handing over to Palesa to talk about our bursary program.
Cool. Thanks, Darryl. Hi, everyone. So I just wanted to talk to you guys about our bursary program, which we're looking at launching very soon within the next month or so. This would be your first step in joining BSG. So if you are interested in our bursary program, we offer bursaries to students who are currently in third year, aspiring to do honors next year, and students who are currently in second year, aspiring to, moving on to third year next year. So we're looking at qualifications like information systems, informatics, computer engineering, computer sciences, chemical and electrical engineering as well. So if this is something that you would be interested in, we'd really love to review your applications and get in touch with you. Applications are not open for our bursaries yet. However, if you would like to know when we launch our bursary, we'll send the university our bursary advertisement. It will also have a link to where you can apply, but also you can get this information directly if you can just scan our QR code and just fill in a quick form so we can get your details. And then as soon as we launch our bursary, we'll be sure to send our information directly to you as well. And you can be in contact with us if you have any questions. With regards to our graduate program, we are currently looking at how late in the year it is already. We're currently looking at wrapping up our graduate intake for next year. And so that's why we've decided to rather speak to you guys then about our bursary program, which we will launch in the next month or so. Are there any questions?
All right, thank you. We had the first question. The person said that what are the requirements of getting accepted into the graduate program? That was the first question. The second question was that if I were accepted, what would be I expected to know? And then the third one, personal projects, something that is encouraged in these graduate programs.
Sorry.
Hi, Mr. Mdulegi. There seems to be an issue with your audio.
Is it? Can you hear me now?
Yes, all good.
All good now? Okay, I'm sorry about that. I was saying that the first question that we had earlier on was that what are the requirements of getting accepted into a graduate program? And then the second question is that if I were accepted, what would I be expected to know? And then the third one was that personal projects, something that is encouraged in graduate programs.
Okay, so the requirements, so if you are doing honors in information systems or honors in computer sciences, then you can apply for a graduate program. There's also a list of other qualifications that we do look at and we consider. So depending on the qualification you do, you can also, while you're currently doing, you also have a choice to choose from our consulting graduate program position or our software engineering position. So if you maybe doing honors in computer sciences or computer engineering, and you're interested in BSG, then you can have a look at our website. So those are the first few requirements that we look for in terms of your qualifications. So if you're doing maybe a different degree, but you do have, information systems, like a background in information systems or computer sciences, you can apply as well, and we will review your application.
Okay.
Okay. So for now, we're currently looking at students who are currently in their honors year. So maybe if you're an undergrad this year, you can look to apply for our bursary. And then by then we would have started a relationship. We'll be in contact with you, and then you can then move over to apply for our graduate program when you are doing your honors year next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last question was about the personal projects. Do you say, is it something that you encourage on these graduate programs?
Yeah, I think so. So, like from a personal project perspective, my recommendation is sign up for something like GitHub to actually
Okay.
host your repository. It's for free. You can actually go and develop a lot of anything really. Like I would encourage you also to have a look at things like Copilot to help you think about specific ideas and help you to implement. I know it's difficult trying to find the responsible use of generative AI, especially when you're a junior. My suggestion is don't outsource your tasks, not your thinking. So don't let it do all your thinking for you. It should help inform the types of things that you're doing and fill some gaps, and you can explore quite deeply into topics with it. And obviously, it can generate a fair amount of, let's say, grunt work of coding. But ideally, you shouldn't be scaffolding everything with it, because I think it's going to harm your understanding, especially at this foundational stage. So personal projects, maybe use some tooling to understand like what are some important problems that need to be solved, especially in our industry or the industry that you want to get into, and then use something like GitHub from a free account perspective to build a portfolio. Because if you can link a portfolio back on a CV, that's amazing. Like, that's a big plus.
Another question was, how do you know which specialization to get into, especially if you are a student with many or multiple specialization, which one specifically I would want to have if I were interested to join BSG?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, we, from a junior perspective, even for the first 4 years, our preference is breadth of skill. So not necessarily deep specialization in any particular field. I think it's also hard to figure out where you want to specialize when you're entering the workplace. The recommendation for me is get exposure, look at building your skills from a full stack perspective. So, traditional back end, front end, understanding database technologies. You can expand that definition to include things like cloud DevOps, security, etc. Like we spoke about. But therein in that exposure, I think it'll give you a good feel for what you enjoy, and then lean into those types of things. I think the worst thing is to maybe specialize too early and then realize that there's a ceiling, or that it's not something that you really enjoy, especially when it ties back to work. And the other gap is you specialize deeply, or you do it too early, and then it's not something that you can translate and use on your day job. Or it's a case of, for the projects that you're assigned to, it doesn't leverage that type of skill, is the tricky part. So specialization, I think, lean into based on exposure to new technologies, etc., that kind of thing. And sorry, I'm reading that last question from Matthew. Yes, so just on the AI and AI automation, it's such an interesting space, guys, honestly, like in financial services and insurance, especially, and it's interesting solving this in like heavily regulated environments because you really have to solve it for probably the hardest use case, which makes the other use cases a little bit easier, to be honest. So AI and AI automation, where it's tying directly into improvement to like business workflows, so the stuff you don't necessarily see when you engage a bank or an insurer. And let's just focus on banks for the meantime, because I'm sure a lot of you guys have access to your bank accounts, etc. There's a lot of stuff that's happening internally at a financial services institution to actually improve their workflow using things like AI. And now there's also a lot of work being done to actually improve customer focused or facing platforms that's using AI and AI automation. So the stuff you'll see a lot of is improving customer experience through things like Gen AI, but also maybe informing the ability to improve workflows for you to onboard and take on new products that you might purchase from these providers, etc., that kind of thing. So at BSG, what we're doing is we're working on a model to help our clients to identify, because there's so many use cases that can be tested. How do you quickly test a use case to see that it is valid from a business perspective and it's going to make sense for a customer? So you can prove very quickly and iteratively that, hey, this use case can make sense. Let's prototype it very quickly in terms of getting some value, getting it into users' hands, and then working to productionize and release that over time. And those things are moving at the speed of literally in a couple of sprints, being able to actually get something working. So the focus is always working software that a client can use and give feedback. So that feedback loop is quite critical. And then obviously, how do you productionize and roll it out for broader adoption? So we've got a dedicated capability called Data and AI, DNAI, we call it, that focuses very much on that. And it's mostly bespoke build for our clients. So we don't necessarily go and create products that we take to market. We help our clients to build. So our banks, our insurers, etc., local, usually in the South African context, we help them to build and solve problems specific to their organizations and then directly servicing their customers.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if Nobile is with me or maybe she was kicked out as well because I can't see her. And I apologize. I think I have a connection issue in my office. I hope, Mr. Darryl, you can see the questions from the chat, right?
Yes, the last two I see are training programs and the internships.
Yes, please. Because on my side, the work just cleared out when I was got kicked out. So can you please assist me?
Sure. So from a training perspective, I think where we are still trying to get a little bit more effective is what are we doing to help bridge the gap outside of, let's say, the four walls of BSG, coming into the business and actually going through our programs very directly. Our programs are more focused on people who have entered the business. So it's not necessarily things that are externalized that you can access if you're not part of BSG. So at the moment, a lot of that is very specific to joining the organization, if I'm understanding the question correctly, or if you're asking if there are suggestions for training programs for specifically for masters and PhD. But I think just from BSG perspective, it's very much around people in our organization who are either coming in from an internship perspective or through our bootcamp and our graduate development program. The question around the internship at our company, that's great. That's awesome. I really encourage you guys to try and get more work that is workplace focused. So whether that's even at in engineering, our traditional competitors, so to speak, would be an Intellect, a BBD, etc. Those types of things. In your guys' space, maybe a Derivco. Like those internships are really valuable, and having that on the CV is quite good to see in terms of obviously bringing you into our organization. And then the next one is applications for the grad program.
Yeah, thanks, Darryl. So with regards to when our applications close, we're looking at concluding those at the end of this month, so at the end of August.
Right. All right, there's another one that says, with the consulting you have mentioned the cloud technology, are there other technologies that you would be working with that are in the role?
Yeah, definitely. I think like cloud is a really good opportunity just because of how broad it is to get exposure into. But from a direct technology perspective, there's a lot of third-party technologies like in the ecosystem that are built kind of outside of cloud, but then become native into it as well. So Kubernetes is a really good technology. So if you guys are looking at container technologies for hosting applications, that's quite critical nowadays. Everyone's looking at container architectures from a microservices perspective. I think other technologies that are of interest that are growing in traction but have very specific use cases are things like serverless. So in AWS, there are things like Lambda and in Microsoft functions, but ultimately using those types of technologies and architectures to actually develop more modern solutions. And then I think just from a general data and AI perspective, there's a whole host of third-party kind of providers across the spectrum of data engineering to AI that are very specialized. So beyond what you can get in the cloud provider, they usually go and take open source stuff, or they build their own things that they put into native service that they provide back to clients. That's the one lens. If you're looking at things that are specialized and have specific names to them, I think there's a lot of other opportunities to look at broader than that. But I would recommend things like Kubernetes, serverless type technologies. There are very specific tool chains in the CI/CD space as well. So everything from Octopus deploy to using things like Azure DevOps, etc. Like there are very specialized types of technologies that you can lean into as well that become a core part of the tool chain that are outside of, let's say, cloud native.
Okay. There is one question from Akon. She is requesting to be taken through the interview process. How does it flow? Can you assist with that? Maybe what are the steps that are expected within the interview? Are there any tests that you have to write, or maybe then the interview, and then maybe you have to visit the site or something like that?
Yeah, so with our selection process, so you'll apply, we'll have your CV, and we'll do a quick review. And then we send you what we call a virtual interview questionnaire just to get to know you better. It has like a couple of questions that you can fill out. Um, and then you'll be sent a coding assignment, which will be reviewed by one of our software engineers. And then thereafter, you'll have your first interview with us, and then you'll have your final interview as well.
Okay. Um, just one from myself to Kyle. Kyle, you mentioned that you are a graduate, I believe, from the graduate program itself. And then how long did it take you to finish the graduate program? And what were your challenges that you have faced throughout the journey? And were you also absorbed by BSG after you have completed the program?
So I'm still in the graduate program. I got a couple more months with it.
Okay.
So the main adjustment was the only thing I really used to struggle with was time management and uh, pacing things out, not being so focused on one thing.
Okay. Okay, nice. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I don't think we still have any more questions, even from my side. Uh, I think there's one that just came in. Um, sorry, this person is saying he didn't get the answer for the question because of the network. Can you please forward your questions again? Because when I ran out of the connection, I think they were cleared from my side. Please just type them again. Just copy and paste, copy and paste. In the meantime, we would like to thank you guys for your valuable insight into your company. I think from UKZN perspective, we will be hearing from our students who are interested to join your company. We appreciate your time and taking us through what is expected from them once they join your company. We really appreciate these tech talks, which gets our students involved into the industry talks. All right. I was still waiting for the questions. Uh,
Or something come
assuming
through.
one, oh, you can go on, sir.
Yeah, so I saw the one was just an expansion. So in the live interviews, I think, guys, what we try to do is keep it quite conversational. At the end of the day, you join an organization to work with people. So really the main thing is we're trying to evaluate hard and soft skills. So in the one, we'll be talking very much about your preferences. So we call them competency-based interview kind of questions. So we'll really get into your preferences off the back of the assessment we asked you to complete, which gives us it gives us like a very high level view of the things you prefer to do, how you engage from a team perspective, how you handle pressure, etc. That kind of stuff. We'll delve into those things, and we'll speak to very specific examples and scenarios. So that's just you relaying your experience around those preferences, why you prefer X, Y, and Z, and preferences on skills. So we just like to understand like what is that disposition and how that will obviously fit in terms of what we're looking for as well. In the other side, there's something that is quite hands-on. It's a case study. So we go through a case study. We'll give you a very high-level use case. It's literally a paragraph, I think, of a client example, and we'll talk and we'll ask you to actually come up with a high-level solution to the problem. It can be something that's more UML based in terms of building out a specific kind of diagram. I think it's usually a relationship kind of diagram example. So, and that's to also just get a feel of skills and how you think, because a lot of the questions around your response is then what made you think of X, Y, and Z? What do you think of, etc. Like, and again, it gets back to the team environment that says, how do you think? How do you solve problems? And how do we help you to kind of grow in that space and help us obviously understand your gaps? The last piece is just kind of and along with that case study is a technical kind of review of code that you submit. So we do like a coding assignment kind of view that says solve a specific problem with actual coding. You would do that in your own time and then submit it, and then we would review that code and we'd ask questions specifically. Again, how do you think, etc. That kind of thing. So it's very much that type of format.
Okay, thank you so much. These ones they came direct to me. I think people they prefer to be anonymous, which is good. The person is asking, assuming that okay, let me start with this one. The person is asking, can I apply for a bursary as a second year student doing only one module?
Second year this year, moving on to third year next year.
Correct.
Yes. Yes, you can apply. We review all applications.
All right. The second one is that assuming that one finishes their degree, but their marks are not so good and they have no project, what they can do. I think maybe Mr. Govender can assist.
I was going to ask Palesa what she recommends. I think, yeah, it's a tricky one. Look, the guys, like, I think, unfortunately, to that earlier point, oftentimes your transcript, it's not your only definition of your academic career, but it's an important one. So we're always going to look at those marks and failing those marks. And like to your point, if you haven't got a project or a portfolio or other things that you're volunteering and showing interest and passion, because that's what we're looking for, a balance of performance, which is typically your transcript and what's on your CV, and then potential. And oftentimes, I think when you're entering the market, performance can overshadow potential, and it's hard to get a feel across both without actually delving in and meeting. But the tricky part is it's very easy to get pre-filtered out. You won't even get a meeting without having a solid view of what your performance has looked like. So I think in that case, my recommendation is start working on that portfolio, start to showcase potential, passion, etc., so that you can stick out or stand out a little bit more, because it can still be one of those things where it's not just a hard line, sorry, performance isn't good enough. It could be a case of like, but based on the potential we're seeing here, let's maybe take a chance and meet. So I think it's important to just maybe solve for the potential side to prove that you've got that passion and interest and drive, and you're showing it through creating a portfolio, getting involved in volunteering in other initiatives, maybe doing other types of certification outside of traditional curriculum, because that could be a way in as well.
Okay. The other one was that what are some of the largest, I don't know if you have attended that one yet. What are some of the largest and well-known businesses that you have had an opportunity to work with as BSG?
Yeah, what's our position on sharing?
Yeah,
We typically don't share our client names, but I mean, just speaking openly, think big five banks, think biggest insurers in the country. We traditionally work with large enterprise only, so it's going to be the big names that you guys are all familiar with for the most part.
Okay, thank you so much. The second question was that I'm doing an house cloud practitioner module. I want to get certification. Do you guys have some sort of internship for that part? And what are advantages of having that certification? An house cloud practitioner module.
Yeah, I think it's useful. I think people are looking for it because the cloud gap is real. Practitioner is good, but the truth is you're better served with things at the associate, professional, specialty level. I know it's hard because that really requires experience. I've seen graduate level people pass specialty exams because of just kind of regurgitating what they've learned. It's not ideal, but that actually people are looking for a bit more experience backed certification. So practitioners entry level kind of to the game and can be helpful because people are looking for it. It will help you to stand out definitely. If you can spend a bit more time, let's say in your project environment, using the technology and then certifying at an associate level, even better. From BSG side, we are still working to improve our internship programs. We don't actively,
Yeah, okay.
we're not actively doing any engineering internship this year, but in the next year, I think we are going to look to offer that. And then in that case, we will do some bridging. It'll all be kind of full stack in the cloud with container technology, etc., that kind of stuff. So next year definitely will be something to look out for.
Thank you so much, Mr. Govender. Palesa, I think this one is rather directed to you. I recently changed my degree to data science, and so I don't do full load because I did those modules in my previous degree. Last semester I was doing 2 modules instead of 4. Do I stand a chance for a bursary or I need to do a full load? I think a full load is having those modules of about 4 modules or 5 modules.
yeah. Um, as long as your studies are full time, yeah, you can apply and we will review your application. Okay,
Thank
and I also
you so
see
much.
the next question is about doing well in first year. Well, you didn't do so well in first year, but you're doing good now. Does that affect your application? No, so we look at your application holistically. So you don't have to be discouraged if you didn't do well in first year. You can send through your application and we will do a review for you.
Oh, you take first years as well.
No, I think this is someone asking, maybe they in second year, moving on to third year, and they went first year
Okay.
last year. They're asking what happens if you didn't do so well in first year.
All right. Okay. Do PhD applied mathematics stand a chance to join the company? PhD in applied mathematics.
If they have the right modules.
I think engineering wise, we and it ties to that question just around MSc genetics. Like I think as long as we're seeing there's some application of specific skills that apply into our environment. So obviously engineering wise, we want to see that you actually have some exposure to things like programming, architecture, design, etc., that kind of thing, and specific languages. I think it can definitely count. Our preference, of course, is like the more traditional route with things like computer science, information science, etc. But I don't think it doesn't negate the opportunity for somebody else in a different area or field to express interest in it.
Do you have, by any chance, a link to the graduate program application?
Yes, it's on our website. So I'll do a quick search and I'll add it to this chat.
All right. The next question is, what happens when you were doing good in first year, but you are doing good? Okay, you were not doing good in the first year, but you are doing good now. Does that affect your
Yeah,
application?
I think Palesa answered that one in the previous.
Oh
Oh, yeah, yeah.
yes, I mentioned that we look at your application holistically, so the person shouldn't be discouraged if they didn't do well in one of the years. It doesn't define the application, and it does not impact the quality of the application. So we do a holistic review of the application, so they can still send through their applications.
All right. The next speaker is stating that she or he is doing a master's in genetics, and they are already using Python and R for data analysis. How do they branch out to cloud? Is it possible?
Yeah, so definitely. I think it ties back to the previous answer to a degree as well. But on the branching up to
Yeah.
cloud,
Okay.
I think the analysis part is quite helpful. So if you're doing a lot of analysis in using things like Python and R, that opens up an opportunity from a data engineering and data analyst perspective, definitely. And then how
Okay.
that a lot of what we're seeing with our clients is they're adopting kind of cloud first technologies. Like in the Microsoft space, they might be using a lot of Power BI for the analyst kind of side, or they're using specific things like Fabric in again the Microsoft space that speaks to the engineering side, etc., and fulfilling that full spectrum. So I think
Okay.
if you're looking at how those skills translate directly into cloud, it's looking at those cloud native approaches and solutions, and that's probably the best thing.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I think this is gonna be the last question that I'm going to take. By the way, guys, the link was shared on the chat. You can just copy it quickly and save it on your notepad or something. The link for the application. The last question is, the person is doing a second year with majors in finance and information systems. And then she is asking that, do you guys have a branch in Joburg, which I believe is correct? And do you offer a vacation work for her?
So to answer the first question about her modules and her majors, yes, she can apply. So I'm assuming, is this for the graduate program or for?
Yeah, I believe so. I think it's for the graduation program.
Okay, yeah, we'll have a look at the application, and then, sorry, what was the second question?
Oh, the second question is, do you guys have a branch in Johannesburg, and do you offer vacation work for second year students?
Oh, yes, our BSG exchange is in Joburg. That's where we are now.
Yeah,
And in
yeah.
terms of vacation work, we don't usually offer vacation work. It also depends on our department's capacity, so the engineering capacity. Um, but usually, no, we don't offer vac work to second year students.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much. Um, okay, I have another one that just came in now. The person is asking, do you by any chance have a postgraduate bursary or is for undergrads only?
We do look at postgrad applications as well.
Or PhD as well?
They can apply. We'll have a look.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, guys. And thank you to the students as well. We appreciate the great interactive talk and this tech talk. If I can only have maybe one of you guys, maybe Mr. Govender, to just have a closing remark before we can close the session.
Yeah, sure. So I think thank you guys for your time. Thanks for attending and for the opportunity to actually present back to you. I think what we wanted to do was just expose like the opportunities we're seeing in the marketplace and aligning your careers to technology stacks and platforms that are going to help turbocharge your careers. So think about your use of the cloud in what you're working towards and what you're actively building skills on, because it will serve you well when you enter the workplace, regardless of the industry. I think a lot of people are investing quite heavily, like I mentioned, and the journey is for some people, the journey is only starting. And other people, like our big banks, have been on the journey for the last 10 plus years. So it will definitely serve you well, create a lot of opportunity for you. And the pace of how things are evolving, like you've seen with generative AI, it is crazy. So try and also, while we're advocating for exposure and breadth, try and also think quite deliberately around where you want to invest those skills as well. That'll come over time, but I think it is good to start thinking about it and start applying your mind to it. And yeah, all the best with your studies and with your careers when they kick off.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, BSG. We appreciate your time and presentation. We believe that maybe next time when we meet, you will be having one of our students as your graduate. We really appreciate your insight. And from my side, thank you so much and have a beautiful afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Bye.
much, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.